My name is Clara, and for 6 long years, I believed I was building a future with the man I loved. A future that crumbled into dust the moment he no longer needed me. It all started in our small hometown, where I worked as a manager at a local bakery, my hands always dusted with a little flour. My life simple but full of purpose. I met Leo when he was a brilliant, ambitious boy stocking shelves at the grocery store. His eyes always hungry for something more. His mind too big for our small world. We fell in love under the slow, setting suns of our youth, dreaming together of a life that stretched beyond the horizon. He was accepted into a prestigious medical school in a city far away. A dream come true that came with a mountain of debt he could never hope to climb. I saw the fear in his eyes, the crushing weight of an opportunity about to slip away. And without a second thought, I made a decision that would define the next chapter of my life. I told him I would support him. I would be the foundation upon which he could build his dreams. I took on extra shifts. I woke before dawn and came home long after dark, my own savings. The money I had painstakingly set aside for a house of our own, now funneled into his tuition, his books, his rent. For 6 years, my life was a cycle of work and sacrifice. The sound of the cash register, a constant soundtrack to my devotion. I wore old clothes. I skipped meals with friends. I said no to vacations, all while picturing his face in a white doctor's coat, our shared victory. We would talk for hours on the phone, his voice tired but filled with passion, and he would tell me, "When I am a doctor, Clara, I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you. We will have everything." Those words were my fuel, the promise that lit up the dark, exhausting days. I lived for the brief visits, for the way he would hold me and tell me I was his rock, his everything. The years passed, a blur of hard work and unwavering faith, and finally, the day arrived. He graduated. I sat in the audience, my heart swelling with a pride so immense it brought tears to my eyes. Watching him, Dr. Leo, walk across that stage, and I knew in that moment that every sacrifice, every tired bone in my body had been worth it. He was finally free, and so were we. The celebration was quiet, just the two of us, and I expected talk of the future, of wedding plans, of the home we would now build. But a strange distance had settled in him. He was preoccupied, his phone buzzing constantly with new friends, new colleagues, a new life I wasn't a part of. Then, one evening, sitting in the small apartment I had paid for, he finally spoke the words that shattered my world. He couldn't marry me, he said, his voice cold and clinical, as if delivering a difficult diagnosis. He said he had met someone else, a fellow doctor from a respected family, someone who understood the pressures of his world. Someone who was his intellectual equal, he said, and I will never forget the chilling precision of his words. "I want to marry a doctor, Clara. It just makes sense. You and we're from different worlds now." The silence that followed was louder than any sound I had ever heard. I looked at him, this man I had nurtured, funded, and loved with every fiber of my being, and I saw a stranger. The shock was a physical blow, leaving me breathless. All I could manage to say was, "You can go." And he did. He walked out of the apartment, out of my life, without a backward glance, taking his new degree and his new identity, leaving me alone with the ghost of his promises. The days that followed were a blur of utter devastation. The crying started then, a deep, guttural sorrow that would wake me in the night and follow me through the day. I would look at my calloused hands, the hands that had kneaded dough and counted out money for his future, and I would cry for the loyalty I had given so freely. I cried for the years I had lost, for the dreams I had postponed, for the naive girl who believed that love was a currency that could never be devalued. The bakery, once my sanctuary, became a prison of memories. Every loaf of bread was a reminder of a rent payment I had covered. Every dollar in the register was a textbook I had bought him. The weight of my own generosity felt like a chain around my neck. How could he? That was the question that had played on a loop in my mind. How could someone I knew so intimately become a person capable of such cold, calculated betrayal? I felt like a stepping stone he had used to cross a river and then abandoned on the other side. My friends were furious for me, but their anger couldn't penetrate the deep freeze of my grief. I was not just mourning a relationship, I was mourning the death of my own faith. The destruction of the narrative I had built my life upon for 6 years. I had been an investor in a future that was never mine, a silent partner in a company that had been dissolved without my knowledge. The injustice of it was a bitter poison I drank every day. It was my older sister, Maria, who finally shook me out of the cycle. She came over, saw the hollow version of me, and didn't offer pity. She offered a hard truth. "Clara," she said, holding my hands, "he stole 6 years of your life. Don't let him steal the rest. That degree he has? You paid for it. That confidence he walks with? You built it. You are the architect of that man's success. And that makes you more powerful than he could ever be. Now it's time to build something for yourself." Her words were a spark in the darkness. It was a long, slow climb out of that abyss. There were still many tears, but slowly, the anger began to burn away the helplessness. I started to see my sacrifice not as a weakness, but as a testament to my own capacity for immense love and strength. I had supported a man through medical school. That was an incredible feat of endurance and will. I had managed finances, worked tirelessly, and been a pillar of support. Those were my skills. I decided to invest that same energy into myself. I used the small amount of money. I had finally started saving for myself again and took a business course. I started experimenting with new recipes at the bakery, bringing in flavors from different cultures, creating a buzz in our town. A year after Leo left, I opened my own small patisserie, Clara's Hearth. It was tiny, just a storefront, but it was mine. Every cake I decorated, every pastry I sold, was a reclaiming of my own worth. I was no longer the woman funding someone else's dream. I was the woman living her own. One rainy afternoon, about 2 years later, Leo walked into my shop. He looked older, tired, the weight of his prestigious world evident on his shoulders. He stood there, damp and uncertain, as I wiped my flour-dusted hands on my apron. He tried to offer a weak apology, talking about the stress of his residency, how he had made a mistake, how he missed the simplicity of what we had. I listened calmly, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No anger, no pain, no longing, just a quiet pity. I had built something beautiful and real with my own 2 hands, while he had built a life on the sand of betrayal. I looked at him, this doctor, and I finally saw him for what he was, a small man. I simply smiled a genuine, peaceful smile and said, "Can I get you a coffee and a croissant, Leo?" They're on the house. In that moment, I was no longer the woman he left. I was Clara, the baker, the business owner, the architect of her own destiny. And my story was just the beginning.